Hello again to all my classes. Welcome back for some more Google SketchUp. The next project we're going to be doing is the wireless speaker kit, the Bluetooth speaker box, which I have already introduced. And now what we're going to do before we start doing any building is draw the model of the project. We are going to draw and focus on first drawing the actual speaker box, which you see over here. Okay. And then we are going to focus on drawing what is called an exploded view, an exploded diagram, which gives you a better look at each individual part that makes up the project. We're going to then dimension the parts, and that will finish out this assignment. So let's get started. I'm going to go to my documents and create a new document. Let me highlight what I'm doing here. So create new, simple template in feet and inches. Okay, so here we are. We're going to say goodbye to our Google friend. We left click and delete him. First thing we're going to do is save our work so we don't have any issues later. So we are going to call this the wireless speaker kit. And I'm going to say 2 because I already named the first one. You can leave that out, but you'll see if I hit OK, it's going to overwrite the first one I did. So I'm just going to put 2, and I'm going to hit OK. Now, I have a lot of stuff for my Google Drive, so I'm going to pick the folder that I want it in, and I'm going to pick this one here and select it. And it's going to save to that folder location. Okay, so I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between the two drawings, but what I want to look at first is the actual piece that goes around the side that has the mitered corners. Okay, so the 45-degree angle here is called a miter, and then the grooves that are here and here, which the front and back pieces will fit into. Okay. So those pieces are going to be, if you look over here, I'm going to get my highlight, 1/4 inch thick, and then they're going to be 3 3/8 wide by 3 3/4 of an inch long. So I have that written down. I'm going to remember that when I make my rectangle. So that's the first thing we're going to do now. We are going to use our rectangle tool. You can press the R key on your keyboard, or you can go click over here and click rectangle. I encourage you to use the keyboard shortcuts. It makes your work a heck of a lot faster. So I'm going to go to the corner where I'm at my origin. I'm going to left click, drag, and then left click again. Now, don't click your mouse again. You can move your cursor, but don't click again. And what I want to do is type those dimensions. The 3, let's see, make sure I get this right. I'm going to do 3 space 3/4 for 3 3/4, comma 3 space 3/8. I'm just highlighting that down here. And I'm going to hit enter. So 3 3/4 by 3 3/8. Now it's going to come up really small because it's a really small piece. Now, what I want to make sure of is that I did those numbers in the correct order. So I'm going to get my tape measure by pressing T on the keyboard. And I want to check the length, which should be 3 3/4, and it is. So that is the correct order that it should be in. And then this is 3 3/8. So that is perfect. Okay, so we did click, drag, click, and we made our rectangle. So that's R. Now we're going to do P, which is push. So I'm going to press the letter P on the keyboard, or you can go over here to the push-pull tool, click and click. Either one works. I'm going to highlight the object, left click, drag, click, and now I'm going to type over here 1/4, or you could do 0.25. Either one will work, and then hit enter. And now we have our piece to the final dimensions it needs to be. 1/4 inch thick, 3 3/8 wide, 3 3/4 long. Now I'm going to hit the space bar to choose my select tool, or click select over here. I'm going to triple click. So we did rectangle, push. Now we're going to group it. That's G. So I'm going to triple click. I'm going to left click 3 times fast, and then I'm going to right click. Now I discovered on your Chromebooks, in order to right click, you tap the trackpad with 2 fingers. So right click and then make it a group, okay? And that means you should, when you left click the object, the entire thing should be highlighted in blue like this. If you don't have it like this, pause, rewind, see what I did, see where you went wrong, and adjust, okay? So now we have the object made. What we're going to do is we are going to make the one piece, and we're going to get it completely the way we want it. And then we're just going to copy it around for the sides and the top because they're identical pieces. So the next thing we're going to focus on is making these grooves. Okay, so the grooves are 1/4 inch wide. Okay, so the distance from here to here is 1/4 inch, here to here is 1/4 inch, and we leave 1/4 inch of space from the front edge to where the groove begins, and the same thing in the back. So we're going to start by drawing layout lines on the object. Now, this is important. Before you start drawing the layout lines, double click your object. You should see this dotted box around your object, okay? If you don't see that dotted box and you're just working in this space, you're not going to be able to push-pull your object, okay? So this is important. Double click. Now we're working inside the object. I'm just going to orbit by pressing O on the keyboard and just pan my camera around something like this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And now I'm going to get my tape measure. You can either press the letter T on your keyboard or go over to the side. Now I'm going to make my layout lines. So I'm going to go on this top edge. I'm going to click, drag, make sure you see the green line there. Otherwise, you're going to be drawing a crooked line. So I click, drag, click, and now I'm going to type 0.25. That's in the corner. Oops. 0.25. Whoops. And then I'm going to hit enter. And you see how the line readjusts to 1/4 inch from the edge. Now I'm going to draw another 1/4 inch line that's 1/4 inch from this line. So click, drag, click, 0.25, enter, and that puts it in the right spot. Now I'm going to repeat the process over here. I'm going to go a little quicker since it's the same thing. Click, drag, click, 0.25, enter, click, drag, click, 0.25, enter. Okay, now I have my guidelines. So now I want to draw lines. Now I'm just going to use my orbit tool. I'm going to press O on the keyboard, and I'm just going to pan around so that this guideline isn't in my way. Now I'm going to get my line tool. If you can press L on your keyboard, that'll bring up your pencil, or you can go over here to the pencil and do that. It'll work the same. So I'm going to draw lines and fill in where the guidelines are. So I want to move my cursor until I see the X that shows an intersection. I'm going to left click once, drag. You should see the red line. And then I should see the intersection again. I'm going to left click again, and now I've drawn a line. Now I'm going to repeat the process. Here, I'm going to draw a line here. I want to see that X. Click, drag, click. Okay, now I have my lines. Now I'm ready to push. Okay, so I'm going to press the letter P on the keyboard, or once again, if you prefer going to the toolbar, you can go over here. Now, you see I can highlight the different surfaces, all right? So I'm gonna click, drag. You can go all the way down if you want, but you wanna make sure you're going in the downward direction. So click, drag, click, and then I'm gonna type 1/8. I'm gonna move my cursor to highlight. That's what I wanna see. We wanna go half the thickness of the wood. So half of a 1/4 inch is an 1/8 inch. So 1/8, and I hit enter, and you can see how it repositions the groove. Now I'm going to do the same over here. Click, drag, make sure it's going downward. Might be a little glitchy. Click, and then I'm going to type 1/8 and enter. And now when I orbit, I have my grooves. Okay, so this piece is now almost done being made, but we still have a little more left to go. So I'm going to hit my space bar to get my select tool, and I'm just going to click out of the area here. And if you want to delete your guidelines, we can do that now. Easiest way to do that, go over to display, delete all guides. Okay, so now that's gone. All right, so now we have our grooves. Last thing we need to do in making the one part is cutting the miters, the 45-degree angles. So the way we're going to do that is by making a separate piece, and we're going to make that our trim tool. It might seem a little tricky, but this is what I've found to be the easiest way to do it. So what we're going to do is make another piece that is going to be used as our trim tool. So I'm going to make a rectangle. I pressed R. I'm going to get to the corner here, just highlight it over there so I can track down the line here. And I should see a blue square. I'm going to click, drag, click, and I'm going to make this piece 4x4. As long as it's just bigger than the piece we made. So I have 4,4, enter, okay? And that'll be just fine. Now I'm going to push, click, drag, click. I'm going to make it the same thickness, 0.25, enter, okay? So rectangle, push, group. So I'm going to triple click, right click, make it a group, okay? Now, what I want to do on this piece is make the miters on the corners. So I'm going to pan my camera around and zoom in a little bit. Now, remember, I'm going to get my select tool. And before I draw anything on this, I want to double click it so I have the box around it. That means I'm working inside the object. Okay. Now what I want to do is draw layout lines that go 45 degrees. So the way I'm going to do that is coming over here to our tape measure. I'm going to get my protractor tool, which is right here. And what I want to do is make sure I have the green protractor. You don't want to see blue or red. Easiest way to make sure it doesn't glitch between the different colors is by getting kind of a heads up view facing this surface. That way the camera won't get confused and pick different protractors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to this corner on the end point, make sure I have a green protractor. I'm going to left click once. Okay. Now I'm going to drag my cursor just down the line a little bit on the edge here. I'm going to left click again. And now when you move your cursor, you should see a line that pivots like this. So what you can do now is move it anywhere you want. And if you look in the bottom right corner, you'll see the angle changing. What you can do is just click it anywhere you want. So I'm going to click it here. And then I'm going to type 45. If you look on the bottom corner, you see 45. I'm going to hit enter. And now my line goes to 45 degrees. Okay. I'm going to repeat the process over here. So on the bottom left corner, make sure your green protractor shows up. Click, drag, click. move your cursor any old direction, click, 45, enter, and now I have my 45-degree guidelines. So now what I want to do is get my line tool. Actually, before that, I'm going to zoom a little closer to this area here. Now I'm going to get my line tool by pressing L on the keyboard. Now I'm going to go to the corner, click, drag along that line, click until you get to the intersection. Okay, now I'm going to orbit with the letter O on the keyboard is my orbit tool. I'm going to hold shift. If you hold shift, it'll toggle between the hand and the, whoops, if you hold shift too long, it does this. No, I don't want sticky keys. Okay, so that will toggle between the two. I'm going to scoot over here. Sorry. Okay, now I'm going to get my line tool, pressing L on the keyboard. Click, drag, click, and now I have my lines. So I'm going to zoom out. I am now going to use my push-pull tool by pressing P on the keyboard. And actually, I'm going to pan my camera around so I can see the corner a little bit. Now I'm going to highlight that corner right there, click, drag, click, and that disappears. I'm going to pan around this way, push-pull tool, click, drag, wait till it gets to the edge, click, and now I have my miters cut, okay? So I can delete my guides, get them out of there. All right, spacebar to get my select tool, and I'm going to click outside the box, so I'm not highlighting that anymore, okay? Now, what I want to do is rotate this so that this lifts up 90 degrees here. And then I'm going to move it over here and use it as a trim tool, okay? So I'm going to press Q, the letter Q on my keyboard to get my rotate tool. You could also, if you want, go over to, you're probably going to see this here, the little arrow. If you click, that's the move tool. If you go to the center, that's the rotate tool. But again, for a little more speed, you can press the letter Q on your keyboard for rotate. Now, again, you might be finicking between the blue and the green protractor. Change your view so it's more head on, and you'll have less of an issue with that. Okay, so I'm going to get to my corner. On the left-hand side, you should see the green protractor. I'm going to click, drag, click, and now you should be able to start pivoting the piece. So I'm going to pivot in, you can either move it until it snaps to 90 degrees. If you look in the bottom right corner, it says 90, or you can get it to anywhere you want in between. Left click and then type 90 and hit enter. Just two different ways of doing it. So now I'm going to move my camera so I can see both pieces. Now I'm going to move this over to the corner here. So I'm going to press M on my keyboard, or you could go to here and go to your move tool. Now I'm going to get right onto the corner there. I'm going to left click once, and I'm going to move it down the line until it meets with the corner of this piece here. And I'm going to left click again. Okay. Now, those two pieces are just merged with each other right now, but we want to use this piece to trim this piece. This is our tool. This is our target. This is what's going to cut the shape into this piece. So I'm going to get my trim tool, which is right here. I'm going to click and go to this one right here that says trim. Okay, now we should, whoops, I'm going to hit escape. What I want to do is not have either of these highlighted right now. Okay, so I want to start with not having this highlighted, not having that highlighted. Let me try that again. Okay, trim tool, trim. Okay, you should see your cursor and then the number 1 next to the cursor. Number 1 is your tool, and number 2 is going to be your target. So we said this is our tool, this is our target. So I'm going to left click once on this piece, And now you see the cursor changes to a 2. Our 2 is going to be this piece here. So I'm going to left click on this piece. And now you see that this piece cut this piece here. So to check that you did it right, I'm going to hit the space bar. And what I want to do is double click this piece. And actually, if it shows this piece still in green, what you want to do is go to display and click hide rest of model. Okay, check that off. And then you'll get a view of how the piece looks. So that's what we want. That looks good. It cut our miter, and now we still need to cut the miter on the other side. So I'm going to get my select tool by pressing the space bar. When I click outside of the box, it brings our trim tool back to us. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to rotate this piece the other way so that I'm using this side of the miter to cut this side over here. So what I'm going to do is first, I'm just going to move this over just to get it out of the way. Make sure your red dotted line shows up so that you don't have this lose position. So red dotted line, okay? Now, what I want to do, I'm going to pan out a little bit, move over. We're going to turn this 180 degrees. So here's how we're going to do that. We're going to use Q for rotate. Get to this corner right here. You should see the green protractor. I'm going to left click once, drag up the line, click again, left click again. Now your cursor should start rotating the piece like so. So here is 90 degrees. If I go further along, it should snap at 180 degrees. You should look in the bottom right corner where it says angle, you should see 180. So once I see that, I'm going to left click again. And now my piece is rotated so I can move it to the other side. So now what I want to do is get both pieces in frame. I'm going to use my move tool by pressing M. I'm going to go to the corner, click, move it over until it snaps into, and I can zoom in here, until it snaps right onto the corner there. That's where we want it. We don't want it up here. We don't want it over here. We want it right in the corner. It should snap in place. Left click it. Okay, now that is in place. Press O and use my orbit tool so that I can see both pieces. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to trim the pieces. So I'm going to get my trim tool. This is my tool, left click. This is my target, left click. Space bar to get my select tool. And I'm going to double click just to check my work. And that looks perfect. So now we have that drawn. We can get rid of this piece here. So I'm going to click it and delete it. The only function that served was to cut our miters nice and cleanly. Okay, so now we have the bottom piece made. I'm just going to my example here. We have the bottom piece made. Now we have to duplicate this so we can see the left side, the right side, and the top. That's what we're going to do next. Okay, so the way we're going to do that is by using our copy tool when we move. Actually, we're going to use our move tool and we're going to press Control to copy. So here's how we're going to do that. We are going to go to our move tool. Okay, move. All right, now let me get this in position a little better. Sorry. So the biggest thing when we make our moves is we want to make sure the angles are done properly. So what I want to do first is for the left side, I am going to make a copy that pivots down this way, and then I'm going to move it up in position. So here we go. We're going to use the, actually we are going to use the rotate tool. So I'm going to press Q on the keyboard. Or you could go over here, rotate, okay? So I am going to get the green protractor. I'm going to click, drag, click, and you should then see this start to rotate. But then if you press Control once on your keyboard, it's going to copy it. So what I'm going to do is pivot that down until it snaps at 90 degrees. Okay. And I'm going to click again. Now, this looks weird right now. It probably doesn't look right. But we're going to move that up later on in a few minutes. And that's going to get right into position. So that is going to be the left side. Okay. Now we're going to make the piece for the right side. So once again, we're going to actually, we want to pivot it this way. So we're going to go to the right side corner, click, drag, click. That'll start pivoting this way. But if I press Control, it'll bring it down and make a copy of it. I can move it till it's at 90 and left click again. Okay, so now this looks a little funky right now, but we're going to move them up and it'll all start looking proper. So I'm going to get my move tool by pressing M on the keyboard. I'm going to go right to this corner here, left click, move it up. You should see it on the blue line. You should see that blue dotted line, and it might say on blue axis like it does there. And I'm going to move that up to the corner. Click. Now that's in place. I'm going to repeat the same process over here. Click, drag on the blue axis, and click. Okay. Now we need the top piece. So the way we're going to do that is we are going to rotate this bottom piece 180 degrees. We're going to flip it. Let's flip it going this way, and then we'll move it up and on top. So I'm going to pan my camera around over to here so I have some space to work. And we're going to use our rotate tool by pressing Q. And I'm going to click this right corner. Make sure it's highlighting this piece, not this piece. Okay. So I'm going to go to the corner, click, drag, click. Now that should start to pivot. Press Control so it makes a copy. Now I'm going to swing this around until it locks at 180 degrees. It'll also say on red axis, and I'm going to left click once. Okay. Now all I have to do is press my move tool, press M on the keyboard, go to the corner, bring it up to that corner. Okay, and now I have made the box. All right, so that is the main box. We're going to go back to our piece over here. Okay, so that is the main box. That's the four sides. Now we have to make these pieces right here. So we're going to do that. We're going to do it off to the side, and then we're going to put it in place after we make them. So what we want to do is make a piece that is a 1/4 inch thick. Okay, so these are going to fit right in the groove. So it's going to be a 1/4 inch thick, 3.5 inches wide, 3.5 inches long, and then we're going to cut a 1 7/8 diameter hole right through it. So we're going to pan over to here, and I'm going to get my rectangle tool by pressing R on the keyboard. I'm just going to drag to the corner so it snaps on the line and drag down. And I am going to do click, drag, click. And I'm going to do 3.5, comma, 0.25. Let me see if I got that right. Yes, that's what we want. 3.5, comma, 0.25. Okay, because remember, this piece is going to be vertical, not horizontal. So I did rectangle. Now I'm going to do push, P on the keyboard. Make sure you got the dotted lines there. Click, drag, click. And I'm going to do 3.5, enter. Okay, so 3.5. And so we did rectangle, we did push. Now we're going to do group. So spacebar to get your select tool, triple click, right click, make it a group. Okay, so now it should look like this. So our piece is 1/4 inch thick, 3.5 inches wide, 3.5 inches long. Okay, now what we're going to do is get our select tool. We're going to drill the hole. The hole is 1 7/8 diameter, which should make it 15/16 radius. Let me just double check on that. Let's look on the other piece here. Okay, so the diameter being 1 7/8, half of that, the radius is going to be 15/16. So that's what we need to know for making the hole. So we are going to double click to work inside the object, and we are going to draw our tape measure guidelines. So I'm going to use T for the tape measure. I'm going to go to the top here. Just make sure you're not on the center. So right on the edge, bring it down, click, drag, click. Actually, instead of click, drag, click, bring it down until you see the midpoint, okay, in blue, in the light blue, and click. Now we're going to do the same over here. Click, drag, move it until you see the midpoint, and click. Now where these lines intersect, we know that is our center point. So if I press C, that will see on the keyboard, that will give me the circle tool. Or you could come over here. You probably had it at rectangle. Let's see. Your toolbar probably looked like this. Click it, go to the circle. So line up your pencil right at the intersection. Okay, click, drag. Now, the reason I was looking around for the radius is because it asks for the radius if you look in the bottom right corner there. So if the diameter is 1 7/8, that means the radius is 15/16. So you can either type it in, or you can make sure you're on the red line here on the guideline. You can click, drag, click, and then type it. So 15/16, enter. Okay, that's our radius. Now it made the circle, and if we want to check that the diameter is proper, we can click from here with the tape measure over to here, and our length is 1 7/8. Okay, so that looks good. Whoops, I'm going to hit escape on the keyboard, get my highlighter back. Okay, so I'm going to hit the space bar to get my select tool. I'm going to use the push-pull tool, and I'm going to push this through. So click, drag, click, and that should disappear. If it doesn't disappear when you click again, you can just type in 1/4 inch or 0.25, and that will take away the whole inside thickness there. Okay, so we have now made that piece. We're going to delete the guidelines. All right. And now what I want to do is put them in place. We're going to move this one into place, and then we will make a copy to put it in the back as well. So what I want to show everyone on here is how it goes into place by hiding. You can actually hide the pieces. If you right click and click hide, I want everyone to see how the corner of the front and back piece lines up right to where the groove stops on the corner of the miter piece. Now, if you right clicked and hide and hid a piece, if you go to, not that. Hang on. Okay, if you go to the glasses again, the display, unhide, and you go to all, it'll bring that back. Okay, so What I want to do now is left click this piece, right click it, and then hide it. So that's out of my view. And now what I want to do is move this piece. So I'm going to just get my camera situated. M for move. Go to the bottom left corner here, click, drag, and then you can zoom in to your corner here, and we want it right on that corner there. So once it snaps onto that corner, left click, and now you have that piece in place. Now what I want to do is copy it to the back. So I'm going to turn my camera, get my move tool. I'm going to click this corner here, click, drag, and you see it's starting to move that piece. But if you press Control once on the keyboard, it's going to duplicate it, bring it over to that corner there, click, and now that is in place. Okay, so now what we can do is hit the space bar, get our select tool, unclick that, and we are going to unhide that piece by showing all. Now we're going to add some color before we duplicate it and do our exploded view. So I'm going to go to materials, and you can do whatever colors you want. I'm going to go to wood, and we're going to do this one for the outside pieces. Okay, and the light color for the front. I'm going to pivot around. Okay, so now we have some color. And the last thing we're going to do now is make our exploded view of the drawing right over here. And it's going to be a lot easier than it might look. Okay, so what we're going to do is copy this, duplicate it, and then we're going to move these pieces apart from each other. So what I'm going to do is get my select tool, and I'm going to highlight the entire object. And you can press Control C and then Control V, and that'll make a copy. Another way you can do it is, Another way you can do it is by using the Move tool. So if you highlight everything, press M, go to your corner, click, drag, hit Control, so then it copies the piece. And I'm going to move it right over to here. Okay, so now I have two copies. I get my camera over to here. And now what I want to do is start moving things apart. So first thing I want to do, I want to separate everything by, I'm going to say 2 inches. So first thing I want to do is lift the left, right, and top pieces and the front and back 2 inches up from the bottom. So what I want to do is I want to click this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece, and the back piece. But if you notice, when I left click each one, it gets rid of the highlighted other piece. So to select more than one piece, hold Shift and then left click. You got to hold Shift the whole time. So I'm clicking all of those pieces. Now what I want to do is get my Move tool. I can get this corner right here, left click, drag up. Make sure you're keeping it on the same axis and not moving it around. And actually, so you can see that better, let's try this again. I'm going to click down here. So click, drag, so it's on the blue axis. That way you can see. And I'm going to click again. And then I'm going to type 2 distance and hit enter. So now that's 2 inches from the bottom. Okay. Now I am going to hit my space bar, click outside of the object so that they're not clicked anymore. Now I'm going to move the parts individually. So I'm going to click this one here, M for move, click, drag on the red axis, click. I'm going to hit 2 down here, enter, and repeat the process. So click, use my move tool, click, drag on the red axis, click, 2, enter. Use my move tool. I'm actually going to pan up a little bit. Move tool. Actually, I don't want that highlighted. I want this highlighted. Move, click, drag, click, 2, enter. All right. So now we have our exploded view. All right. And the last thing that we want to do is dimension our parts. So looking over here, the reason I put the width on this one, the length on this one, and the thickness on this one is just so that it doesn't look crowded. If you put all those dimensions on just one piece, it might be a little crowding on the drawing, make it a little tough to see. So we're going to do that over here. And you can choose to do different dimensions on different parts as long as they're all there. So I'm going to get my tape measure tool, my dimension tool, and I'm going to do click, click, and bring that out. That should be our 1/4 inch dimension, and it is. Okay. And then over here, I'm going to do my width, click, click, drag it out. 3 3/8 is our width. And I'm going to do my length over here. Click, click, drag it out. 3 3/4 there. Okay, now I want to get my width and length and diameter of this piece. So I'm going to get my dimension tool again. On the corner, click, click. You should see 3 1/2. And click it again. Down here, corner to corner, drag it out, 3 1/2. And we're going to do the thickness of this piece. We'll do it out here. Dimension. Click, click, drag it out, 1/4 inch. Okay. And then last but not least is the diameter of the hole. So we're going to use this one here for text. And we can just get a spot on the circle, click, bring it out, and I'm going to relabel this 1 7/8 inch diameter and hit enter. Actually, click outside of it, and that will give you your dimensions there. And that will do it. So you should have a drawing that looks like this when you're done. Let me get rid of that. Okay. So your drawing should look like this. If you choose different colors, that is fine. What I ask that you do when you go to turn this in is give me a close-up screenshot like this, something to this effect, where I can see that you have the hole drilled on both parts. Something like this would be perfect. So one screenshot looking like this, I should be able to see SketchUp for Schools over here. I should be able to see the name of your project over here. Okay. That can be the first screenshot. And then the second screenshot, I want to see your exploded diagram, your exploded drawing. So something like this would be fine. That way I can see all of the dimensions that you made and make sure that you did all your drawings properly. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope this was informative and helpful for you. And once we have this all drawn up, we are going to start building the parts for this Bluetooth speaker kit. Bye, everyone.